What if the key to shaking up the global energy market, the secret to challenging a century of dominance by the West, isn't buried in the deserts of the Middle East or the frozen fields of Siberia? What if it's been hiding right here? A tiny island nation is sitting on what could be a massive oil and gas discovery. By teaming up with an African energy player, they're making a move that could rewrite the rules. But the real question is, can they actually pull it off? In the heart of the Caribbean, you'll find Grenada, the Isle of Spice. It's a nation of just over 125,000 people, famous for its lush rainforests, perfect beaches, and the smell of nutmeg in the air. For decades, its economy has run on tourism and agriculture. Predictable and stable, but not exactly a powerhouse. But under the calm, turquoise waters of its economic zone, a different kind of treasure may be waiting. A treasure that could put this small island on the global map. For years, seismic data hinted at what lies below. An early discovery at a well-named Nutmeg 2 suggested significant hydrocarbon potential. But potential doesn't pay the bills. Grenada has been stuck in a trap common to many Caribbean nations. It depends almost completely on imported fossil fuels. Nearly 99% of its energy comes from imported diesel, which means its citizens pay some of the highest electricity prices in the world. This makes the nation vulnerable, tying its fate to volatile global markets controlled by faraway powers. Then came the game changers. In late 2024, news broke of a huge, multi-billion-dollar deal. A Nigerian company, OceanGate Oil and Gas Engineering, announced a partnership with Global Petroleum Group, GPG, the company holding the exploration license for Grenada's offshore blocks. The agreement, initially valued at $1.8 billion with the potential to grow to a massive $8 billion, covers a 7,500 square kilometre area of Grenada's offshore territory. The players are as important as the deal itself. OceanGate, led by CEO Dr. Aisha Achimugu, represents a new kind of confident, global-minded African business. GPG, which has held the exploration rights for years, finally has a partner with the money and ambition to turn potential into production. Dr. Achimugu described the venture in clearly geopolitical terms, stating, "We believe this project will lay the foundation for future economic collaborations between Africa and the Caribbean." This is the language of South-South cooperation. It signals a clear shift away from the traditional energy world, where developing nations usually have to turn to Western giants like Exxon, Shell or BP for the cash and tech to get their own resources out of the ground. Instead, Grenada is looking east across the Atlantic to a partner in Nigeria, a nation that knows the ups and downs of the oil business all too well. The goal of this alliance is to create a new energy hub, one built not on old colonial power dynamics, but on a shared vision of mutual growth and economic freedom. Their stated ambition is to transform Grenada into a major energy supplier for the entire Caribbean. This would not only secure its own energy future, but also offer a new source of fuel for the region. It's a direct challenge to the old guard. A small island and an African giant are trying to redraw the energy map, but as they get started, they have to consider the stories of their neighbours, and one a stunning success, the other a grim warning. For any nation standing on the brink of an oil boom, there are always two roads ahead, two very different futures. This is something every Caribbean nation knows well. One path leads to Guyana, a country experiencing the kind of rapid transformation most can only dream of. The other leads to Trinidad and Tobago, a nation that once had its golden moment, but now struggles with the weight of the so-called resource curse. Let's begin with the dream. Guyana. Just a few years ago, Guyana was considered one of the poorest nations in South America, with an economy heavily dependent on agriculture, sugar, rice, and small-scale gold mining. Today, it has become the fastest-growing economy on the planet, and not by a small margin. The turning point came in 2015, when massive offshore oil reserves were discovered. Since then, Guyana's economy has surged forward with breathtaking speed. The United Nations has projected that by 2025, its GDP will grow by more than 10%, far outpacing the rest of the region and positioning it as a rising global energy powerhouse. The change is not just visible in statistics. It is happening on the ground. ExxonMobil, leading a consortium of companies, has discovered more than 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil. Production began in 2019, when Guyana shipped its very first barrel. In just a few short years, output has skyrocketed to over 600,000 barrels per day. And this is only the beginning. By 2027, production is expected to reach nearly 1.5 million barrels per day. If projections hold true, Guyana could end up producing more oil per person than Saudi Arabia itself, a staggering achievement for such a small country. The government has ambitious plans to put this oil wealth to work. Between 2025 and 2028, more than $12 billion in revenues is expected to flow into national projects. These investments are targeting the foundations of development. A landmark gas-to-energy initiative with ExxonMobil aims to slash electricity costs by up to 50%, a change that could transform industry and daily life. Billions are being funneled into new highways, bridges and housing developments, opening up access to land and stimulating business growth. Schools and hospitals are under construction, promising better education and healthcare for future generations. For nations like Grenada, Guyana represents a blueprint for how black gold can indeed build a nation, lifting entire populations from poverty into prosperity. Yet this dream comes with shadows. Even amid historic growth, a recent World Bank report revealed that nearly half of Guyana's population still lives in poverty. This underscores the immense challenge of ensuring oil wealth benefits everyone, not just a small elite. This is the tightrope Grenada, and any country chasing the oil dream must walk, balancing prosperity with fairness and avoiding the pitfalls of becoming yet another cautionary tale. And if it falls, the other path is waiting: the Trinidad model. For decades, Trinidad and Tobago was the undisputed energy king of the Caribbean. But it became the region's cautionary tale, a perfect example of the resource curse. Its state-owned oil company, Trinidad, was once a symbol of national pride, an economic giant. But over the years, it became bloated, inefficient, and buried in debt. Mismanagement, political meddling, and a failure to reinvest and modernize led to a slow, painful decline. By 2024 and 2025, the results were clear. The nation's economy was battered. The energy sector, once the engine of growth, kept shrinking, dragging the whole economy down with it. Its revenues dropped by 51% between 2008 and 2018. The government's own finance minister blamed years of mismanagement for the crisis as government debt ballooned and foreign currency reserves dried up. The shutdown of Trinidad in 2018 was a national trauma, a symbol of a dream that turned into a nightmare. It showed how a country with immense natural resources could still end up with a shrinking economy, rising unemployment, and a huge gap between what the government promised and what the people got. The lesson was harsh. Oil wealth without strong governance, transparency, and a plan for the future isn't a blessing, it's a curse. This is the war game Grenada is facing. Will it be the next Guyana, using its newfound wealth to create an economic miracle? Or will it become the next Trinidad, a victim of its own treasure? The stakes couldn't be higher. The title of this video isn't just for show. The partnership between Grenada and Nigeria is a calculated move on the global stage, one that could genuinely disrupt the status quo. So how exactly could a tiny island and its African partner challenge a century of Western energy dominance? First, it's about creating new energy pathways. For decades, global energy has flowed along routes decided by Western economies and their corporations. A successful Grenadian energy sector, built with Nigeria, could establish a new, independent South Atlantic trade route. It could create a Caribbean energy hub that isn't tied to the West's financial or logistical systems. This would allow for direct trade between the Caribbean, Africa, and other emerging markets, cutting out the traditional middlemen. Second, the goal is to break the cycle of dependency. The Caribbean is full of energy importers, all at the mercy of a global market where they have no control over prices. If Grenada becomes a net exporter and a key supplier to its neighbours, it would be a revolutionary shift. Nigeria has openly stated this is part of its strategy, to build stronger economic alliances with the Caribbean. But let's be realistic. The road to crushing hegemony is full of danger. The big energy companies are some of the most powerful corporate players in history. They have enormous political sway in Washington, London, and Brussels. They have deep ties to global finance, allowing them to influence who gets money for big projects. They can use their size to control prices and push out smaller competitors. More importantly, the project faces huge hurdles at home. Here's the most critical fact. Grenada does not yet have proven oil reserves. It sits on incredible potential, but turning that potential into a commercially viable, geopolitically significant reality is a monumental task. As of early 2025, the major deal between OceanGate and GPG had still not been formally reviewed by the Grenadian government's own Hydrocarbons Technical Working Group. This committee, chaired by former Finance Minister Nazim Burke, was set up in late 2023 to assess the feasibility of Grenada's hydrocarbon potential and create the rules to manage it. A key report was expected by the end of 2024, but has been delayed, leaving a cloud of uncertainty. And there's another layer of complexity. In March 2025, the head of OceanGate, Aisha Achimugu, was reportedly declared wanted by Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCCC, for alleged criminal conspiracy and money laundering. While these are still just allegations, they cast a serious shadow over the deal and highlight the need for extreme caution and transparency from Grenada's government. Nazim Burke himself has admitted that his group hasn't seen the details of the agreement and that any partnership must ultimately be approved by the government of Grenada. We're at a fascinating moment in the story of global energy. On one side, you have the small island nation of Grenada, armed with the promise of immense wealth and a bold new vision. On the other, you have the entrenched power of the Western energy establishment and the harsh lessons of history seen in the resource curse that has hit so many nations before. The partnership with Nigeria's OceanGate is more than a deal. It's a declaration of intent. It's an attempt to build a different kind of energy future based on cooperation between developing nations, regional independence, and economic freedom. If it works, it could be a model for other nations, showing them a way to use their resources without giving up their independence. It could genuinely start to chip away at a dominance that has defined the world for over 100 years. But the risks are just as big as the potential rewards. The ghost of the resource curse, as seen in Trinidad, is very real. The internal challenges of governance, transparency, and making sure the wealth helps all citizens are massive. And the external pressure from the giants of the oil world will be intense. The journey from promising seismic scans to a thriving, fair, and independent energy nation is long and full of traps. While the path is difficult, the Grenada-Nigeria partnership represents a new assertive model for emerging economies. It's a bold gamble, but one that could fundamentally change the rules of the game. But the risks are just as big as the potential rewards. The ghost of the resource curse, as seen in Trinidad, is very real. The internal challenges of governance, transparency, and making sure the wealth helps all citizens are massive. And the external pressure from the giants of the oil world will be intense. The journey from promising seismic scans to a thriving, fair, and independent energy nation is long and full of traps. While the path is difficult, the Grenada-Nigeria partnership represents a new, assertive model for emerging economies. It's a bold gamble, but one that could fundamentally change the rules of the game. So now we turn the question to you. Do you think Grenada has what it takes to become a new energy power? Or will it fall victim to the resource curse? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve on the geopolitical shifts shaping our world, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.